All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for watching this video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over how to set up Payload CMS with Astro.js. We'll just take it from scratch where I'll have a Payload CMS project and have an Astro.js project and put them together, and ideally get a website built somewhat from those two different examples of software. So I love Payload CMS. I've heard such great things about Astro.js, so I thought it was time to just dive into it and start learning it. So by the end of this stream, though, we'll have a project from Astro that's working with Payload CMS. Why don't we start over here? And I've just got a basic screen open, and I'm going to change my directory to my desktop. And I have a directory for all this stuff, so I've got my codes. And then I can do something like, I think it's in my tutorial repos. So I'll change directory to that, and then I'm going to make a new directory and call it Astro. And then we'll change directory into Astro, and I'm going to run pnpx create payload app. And so this is going to create, I'm going to do a blank template, Astro example. I'll do a blank template with MongoDB for Payload CMS and use pnpm there. And then I'm going to need Astro build. I'm going to also have to create that here. So I've got my Astro example, which really I need to rename that. So I think I can just do move Astro example to Astro payload. So we've got create Astro, and now it's launching. Should we create your new project? So I'll do Astro website. I will just do a starter project and install the dependencies. Yes, with a new Git repo, and let that install. So now we have our Astro payload and Astro website. So in order to make this a monorepo, though, we're going to add a package.json file to the Astro directory here. So let's do a new package.json, and I'm going to copy an example from Payload CMS. And I'm going to change this name to be Astro Payload Monorepo. And so now I'll be able to, from this folder, run my dev scripts into my Astro Payload. So I need to change that, Astro Payload, and then Astro website. So in my Astro Payload, I get my front end and my payload. I just need to delete the front end because I'm going to be using my Astro as the front end. So now that should be all I need for my package.json for my monorepo. So that looks good. The test I don't actually need. That's just from the example because there is no test. So in my Astro website, we are going to need to look at our config here, Astro config, make sure that this is correct. So we're going to import node. So we need node from Astro.js node, and I think I need to install these dependencies, but I'm going to also import load environment from payload node. So now we're going to output, and we're going to use the server and an adapter, which will be our node adapter, which will have a name, standalone. And we're going to load our payload environment. So this looks good here. So I need to change my directory to the Astro website. And I need a few things here. So first, yes, I need Astro. Then I need Astro.js node. And that version is going to be, we'll just do the latest. And then we're going to do payload, which I'm going to put at the same version, which is latest. I'm going to take these pins off. And then payload app, and that's going to be workspace. And let's just install the things that we can install. Great. So all of that should install. We should see over here in our Astro config, we should see all of this come through. So name must not be what the actual thing is here. It's mode. Don't know how I mixed that up. So now we've got standalone here. So in our monorepo here, I'm going to add a new file, and that's going to be a pnpm-workspace.yaml. And then I'm going to add the packages, which will be Astro Payload and Astro Website. I accidentally left a comma here. Everything should be working just fine now. So now if I go up to my Astro, we'll do first pnpm dev payload, just so we can open up our payload instance. And let's actually go to admin. So we'll see how all of this works. So I'll use my normal test user, and I have users and media, perfect. So that's great. One thing I should do is I'm gonna create really quickly in my source collections, but we've got our posts.ts, and then we'll create a new pages.ts. We'll import a collection config from payload. We'll export a constant called pages that will need a slug called pages, and then fields that will be an empty array until we add a type of, we'll say text, name, title. Then we'll include a slug field, which expects that title name to create the slug for me and that slugify function. And let's do, sure, we'll try and throw in a rich text here. I haven't done a rich text from scratch in a while. So we'll do rich text and we'll just call this body. Then we'll just copy this, we'll paste it over to posts, posts.ts. We'll do a slug field, text title. Let's make title required because I don't want to do a bunch of type checks later. And rich text required. Do the same thing here. Required true. Then we go to our payload config and register these. We'll do posts and we'll do pages. Save. Types are there. Let's open up another terminal and we're going to do pnpm dev. I think I did website, and we'll see what this does for me. Local host 4321. There we go. We have an Astro site up and going. So let's generate some posts right quick. So we'll do post 1. This is some text for post 1. This is bolded text. So I'm trying this because I want to see how rich text is rendered by Astro. And if I have to do any, like if there's any caveats or anything that I need to figure out that way. This doesn't need to be very long. And I can save, slug gets generated. Let's duplicate, make post 2, unlock and generate. So we'll have post 2, save that, do the same thing. We're gonna duplicate, we're gonna have 3 posts. Text for post 3, and then we're going to generate the slug again. Hit save, run over to our pages. We'll do a home page. This is the home page. Yay. Again, just a little bit of stuff here and there. We'll do a home page. We'll do an about page, and then we'll do a contact page. Unlocked, generate, save. Okay. So we now have a couple of collections with a couple of documents set up for our Payload CMS, all of that stored in our database, which we can see here in our API, stored as JSON data. So now we're going to try and render this over onto my Astro front end. So let's take a look at our index.astro file. I'm going to install the Astro plugin because I apparently didn't have it on WebStorm. So let's do that. So now I'm going to import getPayload from payload. We're going to import config from Astro payload. Then we've got our welcome and our layout. So now we can get a constant called payload where we're going to await getPayload config. Then we're going to get our posts, for example, and we're going to await our payload.find. We'll do collection, we'll do our posts. So let's go into our welcome here. Up here, we're going to import a few things. Sure, we can keep the Astro logo in the background. We're going to import our type of post from our payload types, Astro payload. And then we're going to import, again, our type of paginated docs from payload. We're going to create an interface called props with our posts, and we're going to have that as paginated docs with our post type. And then we're going to have our constant of posts. And that's going to be Astro props. And then here under, or let's, instead of what's new in Astro 5.0, let's go ahead and we're going to do a section called it's going to be an ID of posts, just so we can style it however we need to. Then we'll do an H2, and this will be posts from Payload CMS. Then we're going to do an unordered list. We'll call this our posts list. Inside the unordered list, we'll do posts.docs.map. Then we'll have a post. Inside the post, we'll get our post card. Then we'll have an H3, which will be our post title, get data the way we always do. So we'll do our post title. Everything's pointing to that index.ts file. I didn't create that index.ts file. To get rid of the Astro payload not being found issue, it came into the TS config and it added in the Astro website TS config paths to Astro payload, and so it has the source index.ts. That's where we find Astro payload, and then all of its children directory as well as a path. So it's just added this compiler option for the TS config. So one other thing that I forgot to do is add the environment variables to my Astro site. I need to copy my environment.file from Astro payload into Astro website. And now we're going to need to restart this. We've got our posts down here, and then we've got Astro up there. Let's come back over to our welcome page. I want to bring this section into that main. Okay, let's just get rid of the hero section. So I do want to create these as links. So we'll do an A tag here. And then I need to add my href. We can actually do it like this. Let's do this as a div, and then these class postcard, get rid of these. The href is going to be our posts, and then it's going to be our post slug. So now I can see down at the bottom, there's post 1, post 2, post 3. Now we need to generate a page. So I should be able to go into pages, add a directory, and then we can do a new file called index.astro. And then I'm going to do a new file, and then this is going to be, we'll call it slug.astro. So we're going to export a function we'll call getStaticPaths, and then in here we're going to return an array. But from here I'm going to import getPayload, from payload import config from Astro payload. Then we're going to import type posts. So I'm going to just copy this, come into the slug. There we go. So all of that looks right. Then we're going to do an interface. We'll do props, and then we'll do posts, paginated docs, post. There we go. So we have our props from our posts. Then we're going to initialize payload, do await get payload, pass in the config. So now I need to get my posts by doing await payload.find collection. Be our posts. It's going to be all of them. So we'll do a limit of 0. Then we'll return post docs doc. Then we'll return our params slug doc slug. All right, so all of that should be good, but then to make sure that this actually works, we'll do div, and we'll do const slug equals astro rams. I can get my slug. So now I can get my post instead and do await payload.find, do collection of posts. We'll limit it to 1 where slug equals slug. So instead of slug here, let's get post params, get post params slug. Then there we go. We'll do a main here. So this is not going to have any styles, but that's okay. We'll do an h1 post 1 shows up. So we're going to go back to our posts, rich text. We're going to get our lexical HTML field, which let's make sure this is not the deprecated one. And going to be rich text. HTML field name will be HTML. So now we need to change directory first. Then we can run our generate types, but it has to be pnpm run generate types. Now I can run dev payload, and then I have to come over to payload and refresh. Let's go to posts. So we've got our body. Now we have our HTML. Perfect. So I should be able to go over to our Astro slug. Instead of using my component, I should be able to use a div. And we're going to insert our post HTML. So now I've got HTML showing up, but of course that's not helpful. Set HTML as post HTML. Now I can see this is some text for post 1. This is bolded text. Then I can do post 2. See that as well. And then post 3. So that's perfect. Then I don't have anything in posts. So why don't we set that up real quick? And then make sure our links work. So we're going to go to our index.astro for our posts. So I could do, instead of this, and I think I want to do this, I'm going to delete this. And then in my pages, I'm going to do a file, and I'm going to call it posts.astro. And then what I want to do is, first of all, just add a div within h1 of posts. And we can see that there. That's perfect. Now we've got our constant title is equal to, and then set Astro props. Then for the title, I'm going to set this as test posts. There we go. We have test posts. So now let's get our stuff. So just like I did over here in index, I'm going to get my payload, get my config. Then I'm going to get payload, get our config. Then from there, we're going to do our posts, payload.find collection posts, limit 0. Now I can do an interface of props, which we're going to have our posts as paginated docs of post type. Then we're going to have a div where we're going to have our posts docs.map. I can just do this. Don't think I need a key, but that's okay. Then we'll do our post title. Okay, yeah, I don't need the key here. So if I refresh now, there we go. The post is there as well. So I just had to put the await here because it was sending through an undefined to my post. Then instead of div, I can do an a tag, which will have an href of my posts post slug. Then I want to actually sort created at. There we go. We can do some quick styles. So we'll do 1 pixel solid, and then we'll do a padding of 1 rem. If I save this, let's do dark blue so we can see it. Then we'll do margin 1 rem, 0, 1 rem, border, radius, 1 rem. Perfect. So now if I click on any of these, they just look different. And then we could do something like box shadow 0.5, sure. There we go. So very 1990s, but we've got these links nice and styled, and I can click into any of them and get our post 1. What we did today is we created a monorepo. We added payload to that monorepo, and then we added Astro to that monorepo. We then got Payload CMS and Astro to communicate with one another. And then we added our posts to our homepage, and then we added a post index page and individual post pages. We did all of that with Astro and Payload CMS. We had to do a couple of things with RichText, which we needed to use the HTML converter instead of a RichText component. That's not a big deal as long as you're okay using HTML, which honestly you should be. And then with that, we got basic data fetching set up with Astro and even figured out a little bit of the metadata and how that works in Astro as well. So lots of good stuff here. Astro is one of the fastest frameworks for JavaScript. It only sends the JavaScript necessary to the client, which is great. It sends less JavaScript, which means faster websites. And Payload CMS is the best headless CMS in my opinion. We can run it with or without Next.js. Here we used it as a headless CMS. I can run it at the same time as my Astro site and build out my CMS alongside my front end without even touching Next.js. Don't have to use it at all. So this was really cool. I really enjoyed using Astro. I hope you enjoyed following along. If you found this content helpful, make sure you subscribe so you can see whenever I post anything about Payload CMS, Next.js, Astro, anything about modern web dev. I have a newsletter called Next in Dev where I talk about the changelogs, about Payload CMS and other web dev technologies, as well as things like AI and the things that just impact the web development industry overall. Tons of ways you can communicate with me, so feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. If you have comments or suggestions, please leave those in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I do listen to your ideas and make videos based off of those ideas. That's it for this one. I'll see you in the next video.